Dragon Ball fighters have taken the internet by storm and piqued the interest of longtime Dragon Ball fans and players of the fighting game community, or the FGC. Dragon Ball FighterZ looks identical to the anime, and each character's attacks are taken directly from the manga and anime. This is something that Dragon Ball fans will notice and appreciate. Dragon Ball FighterZ isn't just your typical Dragon Ball game though. It is a competitive fighting game similar to the likes of Street Fighter and Tekken. The stunning graphics and unique gameplay has managed to unite both Dragon Ball fans and fighting game players together. Dragon Ball FighterZ isn't releasing until early next year, but is already doing amazing things, leaving a lasting impact on fans and players alike. Although Dragon Ball FighterZ is amazing in its own right, we have seen something like this before, a fan game known as Hyper Dragon Ball Z. Could Hyper Dragon Ball Z be responsible for the existence of Dragon Ball FighterZ? Let's dissect both titles and find out. For years, we've been receiving all sorts of Dragon Ball games with different gameplay styles and mechanics. During the Butoden era, we received a game called Super Dragon Ball Z. The game played similar to Street Fighter and was cel-shaded to look like the manga. Although it played similar to arcade classics, it wasn't recognized as a competitive fighter, and therefore didn't make it into any fighting game tournaments. Years passed, and we get our Butoden, Tenkaichis, and Raging Blast. Then in 2011, we got Dragon Ball Z Ultimate Tenkaichi, one of the worst Dragon Ball games. Dragon Ball fans were not pleased with this, and in 2014, 3 years later, we got Dragon Ball Z Battle Z. This game used a playstyle similar to Zenkai Battle Royale, but was not good. Dragon Ball games were failing to please its fans, and weren't performing as well as other games, like the Naruto Ultimate Ninja Storm series. But April of the same year of Battle Z's released, a video was uploaded to YouTube, and it was something amazing.
What do you wish for? It shall be done.
Hyper Dragon Ball Z was announced, and it looked awesome. It was a classic Street Fighter style 2D competitive fighting game, and the best part about it is that it was free to play. Hyper Dragon Ball Z is a game that runs on the Mugen engine, which I'm sure many people are familiar with. Usually when people hear Mugen, they think of something crazy like Super Saiyan 17 Broly versus God Ogre Akuma, or Ryu from Street Fighter versus Peter Griffin from Family Guy. Crazy stuff. But never before have I seen something so incredible come out of the Mugen engine. The game has a similar playstyle to classic Capcom games like Street Fighter and Darkstalkers, but it also has some newer features taken from Street Fighter 4 like ultra combos and focus attacks. The game's detailed sprites and Easter eggs are something that all Toriyama fans would appreciate. Hyper Dragon Ball Z was designed to be the Dragon Ball game that fans wanted and deserved.
Dragon Ball Z.
For the past couple of years, we've been receiving Dragon Ball games like Xenoverse. One that stood out to me that didn't really stand out to other fans as much as Xenoverse was Dragon Ball Z Extreme Butoden for the Nintendo 3DS. The game was developed by Arc System Works and used new animated sprites comparable to that of Hyper Dragon Ball Z. I was hyped for this game and bought a 3DS specifically for Extreme Butoden. I was in love with the sprites and wanted to know if I could get my hands on them. I went to a website known as the Spriters Resource where you could download various sprites from different games from different eras. And I remember someone commenting on one of the comment sections on the Extreme Butoden sprites saying, Mugen fans are going to have a field day with these sprites. Surely enough, that's exactly what happened. Fan games like Dragon Ball Z Retro Battle X used Extreme Butoden sprites and it made the game look freaking awesome. I even see YouTubers use Extreme Butoden sprites alongside Hyper Dragon Ball Z sprites in their animations. Both sprites are amazing, but when it comes down to the actual game, Hyper Dragon Ball Z stomps. Extreme Butoden is great, but its potential was limited because of the platform it was on, which was the Nintendo 3DS. I remember playing it with my brother and telling him, imagine if this game was on consoles. It would be like Blaze Blue. Little did I know, something better was coming. This year at E3 2017, Dragon Ball FighterZ was announced. I was speechless when I saw it. I talked about a Dragon Ball Z game graphically similar to Blaze Blue, but we're getting one graphically similar to Guilty Gear, which is 100 times better. Dragon Ball FighterZ is a 2.5D fighter, which is basically a 3D model game fighting in a 2D format. It features 3v3 combat similar to Marvel vs. Capcom series. It even has stage destructions, both minor stage destruction and dramatic stage destruction, which is something we haven't seen since Ultimate Tenkaichi. The game was even featured at EVO and was completely playable. This game is only 20% done and it looks amazing. Due to the nature of this game, people like myself couldn't help but question, would we be receiving this game if Hyper Dragon Ball Z never existed? Is Hyper Dragon Ball Z responsible for the creation of Dragon Ball FighterZ? For me, the answer is yes and no. I say yes because although Hyper Dragon Ball Z isn't official, it was the first competitive Dragon Ball fighting game. It was actually featured at EVO 2014. This game was the game that fans wanted, and if it got the amount of attention that it did, Bandai Namco has to have seen this. It would only be logical for them to give us something similar if it was something that the fans truly wanted. It could be a coincidence, but I highly doubt it. Now, the reasoning I think Dragon Ball FighterZ still would have came out even if Dragon Ball Z was never created is being the relationship between Arc System Works and Dragon Ball. Dragon Ball FighterZ isn't Arc System Works' first Dragon Ball game. It dates back even before Extreme Butoden. In 2004, Dragon Ball Z Supersonic Warriors was released for the Game Boy Advance. It was developed by Arc System Works. Then they released a sequel, Supersonic Warriors 2, for the Nintendo DS. Arc System Works has produced a Dragon Ball game for 3 generations of Nintendo handhelds. It would only be a matter of time before Arc System Works decided to take their games to the next level. Now, to compare Hyper Dragon Ball Z to Dragon Ball FighterZ. It is obvious how much of a difference there is between the two games. One is done by a fan with a small team, while the other is being done by a large corporation. It would only make sense that Dragon Ball FighterZ would be the better game. So what does this mean for Hyper Dragon Ball Z? We have to keep in mind that Hyper Dragon Ball Z and Dragon Ball FighterZ are two different games. Look at it this way, Hyper Dragon Ball Z is like Street Fighter, while Dragon Ball FighterZ is similar to Guilty Gear. Not to mention all the time that was put into Hyper Dragon Ball Z. I know that Dragon Ball FighterZ is a bigger game, and if it hasn't already, it will overshadow Hyper Dragon Ball Z, but I don't want anyone to forget about this game and what it stands for. Hyper Dragon Ball Z is an embodiment of the will of Dragon Ball fans. This game was us speaking out to Bandai Namco and expressing what we wanted. Now we're getting it, so don't forget about Hyper Dragon Ball Z. And as for me, I will continue to support this game and upload gameplay of it to my channel, showing off their new releases. So Balthazar, if you're watching this, please, don't let Dragon Ball FighterZ end your creativity. You have supporters who will gladly still play and all the same enjoy your ever-growing game. This has been Moonkiller, and I hope you guys enjoyed this video. Please don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe, and also check out FighterZ's channel, the creator of Hyper Dragon Ball Z.